love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union.
Hello comrades and welcome back to the Ushanka Show. Today, as I promised, we're gonna talk a little bit about fishing in Soviet Union. And first of all, I would like to remind you that I'm just telling you this little tiny slice of about life in Soviet Union, just about my experiences. So it doesn't cover like the whole Soviet Union, how people fished in Siberia or Far East or anything else. This is just what I remember, because I'm trying to base my stories pretty much on my experience, because that's what the real life in Soviet Union was, and I think it's more important instead of reading something off internet and then retelling you. I just want to share what I did, what I experienced while living in Soviet Union from 1971 when I was born till 1991 when Soviet Union collapsed. Before we start my story about the Soviet Union, I actually would like to tell you a story about the United States, because that's when first time I realized the huge difference in the whole fishing mentality and fisherman strategy in America versus Ukraine or Soviet Union. So if you follow my show, you may already know that I came to the United States first time in 1995 when I was 24 years old. I came on exchange program to work in the summer camps, and I came to Michigan where I ended up living. And the camp I worked, first year I worked as a photography specialist. They had a small lake, and one weekend the camp director's father arrived. He had a little pickup truck and a trailer, and he brought a little fishing boat. And he went fishing all day on this little lake. And I was quite curious because I did a lot of fishing back in Ukraine as a kid. So when towards the evening when the guy came back to the shore, I went and talked to him and asked him how was his fishing, and he said, "Oh, fishing was amazing. I caught a lot of nice big fish." So I got all excited, like, "Can I see the fish?" And he looked at me, give me this funny look, and he's like, "Well, I let them go. I just took a couple of pictures." And I remember it was like somebody hit me on the side of my head with a hammer, because the whole concept of to catch a nice big fish and release it back into the water, it's totally unacceptable, unheard of. I was like, my father probably would have a heart attack, just the whole idea of letting fish go. Because in Soviet Union, when we fish to catch and eat the fish. It's not like spend the time and have a good time and then let the fish go and you go home. You actually go fishing because you want to eat fish. And the only fish you let go is a tiny one so they can grow bigger. So that was my first experience with American fishing. And I said I was extremely dismayed, disappointed, just shocked, because like a guy spent all day on the lake and he came back with nothing. He just had a good time catching fish and let it go. So that whole thing just completely, it just didn't work for me. I was very disturbed. So fishing in Soviet Union, I got lucky. Like that's why I keep on repeating that I really enjoy my Soviet childhood. Even I was a city boy. I was born and grew up in Kiev, capital of Ukraine. Every summer I spent in the village in northern Ukraine with my friends, staying at my grandparents, and it was just fantastic. And one other thing we did when I grew older, so when I was maybe 10, 11, we would go ourselves, just me and my friends, and we just fish. We used fishing poles, udочка, but it's just the basic fishing pole with no gadgets on it whatsoever. It just have a long pole, long stick, right, which you cut in the woods. You go and wander around the woods, you're trying to find the tallest, the thinnest young tree that you cut down. Then you trim all the little branches and maybe peel the bark off it, and that's your fishing pole. Then you attach the fishing line to the far end, and the thinner end is better. And then of course you have a what is it called, bobbler, the floater, little weight, and then a hook. And this is your device to go fishing. So that's what I did most of the time, and my friends just fishing with this kind of primitive fishing poles. And so we go to the river. If we get lucky and grandparents would allow us to use their flat bottom wooden boats, then we can, go a little bit different directions across the river. Otherwise, all we could do is just fish along the banks, just one bank. You just go and try different spots where the good fishing. Of course, no life jackets, nothing like that. We just go there, hang out by the river. So now I'm looking back like, man, that was pretty dangerous. We were young kids. And of course, because it was always happening in the summer, I kind of get used to this recreational style of fishing. So you go there, it's hot, so in your swimming trunks you fish. If it's not a good fishing, you just go swimming and get tan. Or you just, while you're fishing, you in your swimming trunks, so you get in tan while fishing. So this is kind of most popular way of fishing that I did when I was a kid. So what kind of fish we've been catching in Ukraine, in northern Ukraine? I said, this is just this tiny slice of stories about Soviet Union. So there was different fishes, of course, in different areas of Soviet Union. So I want to tell you, when we were fishing with fishing pole, usually most popular fish was verkhovodka, which in English it's called common bleak, like on this picture. So this fish, it's like a little silver fish, and they always kind of towards the surface. That's why they call it verkhovodka, so it's an upper water fish. And it was really easy to catch. There was abundance of them. Since it was pretty skinny fish, people who've been fishing with fishing nets, they never caught them. So there was abundance of that type of fish. And all you needed to do for the bait, you can just use bread. You make a little tiny ball, dense ball with your fingers, put on the hook. And it was a popular bait for the verkhovodka fish. Of course, you can get a worm, but it takes longer because you need to go with a shovel. Of course, we couldn't purchase any bait, fish bait. It's all you need to do it yourself. So then you go and you find spots where worms live, like somewhere by manure pile or somewhere in the lower areas when it's watery, because worms like wet ground. So earthworms will be another bait, but since it was a lot of work, I didn't do a lot of earthworms. Then you can go in the fields and try to catch grasshoppers. That's another popular way of catching fish with the grasshoppers. It's the only way after you catch them, you need to rip their rear legs off, otherwise they hop too much. Or you can have a fly swatter and you just pick the biggest flies and get a bunch of those. That was another successful way of catching verkhovodka on the flies. Real flies, but the problem with those that they were so easy to rip off the hook, so you need to really watch your bobber. I think it's called bobber, right? Poplavok. And otherwise, they can steal your fly in 1 second. So one of the most popular fish we caught was verkhovodka, common bleak. And so what was nice about verkhovodka fish, that common bleak, is that you could catch it any time of the day. Like they were active all day long, because they're floating by the surface of the river trying to get flies or anything else. If you want to get more serious, better quality fish, then you need to go fishing like early morning or late evening. But for the kids, of course, we would like to sleep in because it's our summer break. So you just get up, have breakfast, gather your buddies, and then you just go fishing when it's nice and warm, and then you swim and fish and swim and fish and get tan. So that's why that type of fish was most popular. And I could catch maybe 15, 20 of those in a couple of hours. Then you bring them home and grandma will fry them. Usually we fry them on the frying pan, kind of make them sunflower oil, and you toss them in the flour, and that's how you cook it, and it's delicious. Another fish that we caught quite often was plotka. It's a common roach, R-O-A-C-H. This is a better fish. It could be a bigger size. It was a thicker, a bigger fish. It was harder to catch. They were kind of more down at the bottom, and they preferred worms. But sometimes we'll catch those, and usually it's kind of considered like a premium fish. So you're excited, like, hey, I got plotka, check it out. And there's another very similar looking fish called krasnoperka, common rod, RUDD. That's also kind of, they're very similar. Like, you need to look careful at them. One just had a brighter red fins, and plotka, I think, had like a greenish top. Otherwise, they looked very similar. I would confuse them quite often. So those will be like our premium plotka and krasnoperka. If you catch a couple of those, you'll be really happy because they had more meat, they heavier fish. And as I said, usually I'll come home maybe with 10, 15 common bleaks and maybe a couple of common roaches or rods. So that's my average catch would be for, 3 hours of fishing on the river. And another fish we would catch sometime, that's a funny one. It's called piscari, and its English name is the gobio or gudgeon, Gudgeon. We really didn't like to catch them, but sometimes if there's no catching, good fishing going on, we'll go to a specific spot, because this kind of fish, it's a bottom feeder, so they're like a little catfish, little tiny catfish type, maybe, but it's a gobio. You only can catch them on using a worm. They don't use any other bait, and they like the fast flowing water and shallow. So they would piscari. It's from the word pisok, which means sand. So you can probably, proper translation be sander. So this fish likes sand in a fast floating kind of creeks, and they just dig in the sand looking for worms or whatever else lives down there. They were just kind of fun to catch because they really, like, if they grab your hook, they start pulling really hard and they fight you hard. So that's more like fun to catch. But they're usually pretty small size fish. I said there's nothing going on and you would like some fish, you'll catch a couple piscaris. And some people have been using them as a bait for the bigger fish. So this is the main type of fishes that we've been catching with regular fishing pole. So there's verkhovodka, plotka, krasnoperka, and piscari. So that's usually what we are bringing home as kids. As I said, we'll only let go the tiny ones, so like baby fish we call them. Otherwise, everything else you catch, you bring home. And then I was lucky. My grandma was, she will gut them and descale the fish and just fry them. Actually, verkhovodka, the common bleak, was so small that you didn't need to descale them. You just fry them the way they are, and you just eat them whole, bones included. So that was pretty easy. So this is our first part about fishing in Soviet Union, fishing with the fishing pole as kids. I hope you enjoy the show, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.